Good morning, everyone. This is Yvonne Mason, your best-selling independent author. And this morning, I want to talk about someone that's very close to me. This is an inspirational part of my life that I would not be successful without this person. I have a brother who is mentally and physically challenged, who was born at a time when there were no resources. He was born in 1952. There were no resources for the challenged. In fact, they were put away either in asylums or in back rooms, and they were left basically to die. Most people were embarrassed by them. They didn't want them around because they were stared at, and they were bullied, and they were teased, and they were made fun of. My mother, when she found out that my brother was retarded, and yes, that is the word we used, she decided that she would help him make his own path. And her logic was, the brain is a muscle. And if the brain, like the muscles of your legs, your arms, your back, your shoulders, your neck, are not exercised, they atrophy. So she began to exercise his brain. She taught him right from wrong. She taught him to be sociably acceptable. She taught him that bad behavior reaps discipline. She taught it with love. She taught it with kindness. And she taught it with siblings. My brother's name is Stan. He is the second of 5 children. I am the oldest, and there's 3 behind him. Stan did not speak until after he went to school. Stan also was club-footed on both feet and had to have cast on both of his feet. The doctors told Stan that he would never walk, talk, or do any of the things that we do and take for granted every day of our lives. Well, Stan did those things, and much, much more. Stan became a pioneer in the Fulton County, Georgia school system in the middle 1950s. He learned to talk, he learned to walk, he learned how to be sociably acceptable, he learned to read, which was not even on the Richter scale. Stan also graduated from high school in 1972. He was not supposed to do that. He and my brother had a paper route when Stan was 7 years old. And every day, Mother would get them in the car before daylight, and they would go and sling papers to friends and neighbors for blocks and blocks and blocks. This was at the time when you had to go and collect for the paper. The boys would go to the door, knock on the door, and they would collect money for the paper. When Stan was in high school, he was in a program that taught him how to work out in the world. Every day after school, he would catch a bus to downtown Atlanta from our high school in East Point, and he would go to a workshop. He would catch this bus by himself. He would go to this workshop, and then he would catch this bus home every afternoon. Stanley got a job working in a restaurant as a dishwasher. He would go to this job every day, regardless of how he felt. After Stan graduated from high school, he continued with that job until my father and mother moved. Then he got a job and worked for 11 years as a janitor with a company through the government. He worked there until they closed that down. Currently, Stanley works for Publix. Has been there for 18 years. When Stanley went to work for Publix, he told them that he didn't want to be a janitor anymore. He wanted to be a stock person. Now, this is a man who was told he would never get beyond a 3-year-old mentality. They allowed Stanley to do that. For that, I will always be grateful. Anyone that has ever done stocking knows it's not an easy job, but he did it. It's not just putting cans on a shelf. It requires a thought process and physical labor. The thing is, we all make excuses for what we cannot or will not try. We make excuses for things that are too hard, things that are too challenging, things that really don't interest us. We quit jobs because they bore us. We quit commitments with our partners and husbands and wives and friends because they don't meet our expectations. Well, let me tell you something. Stanley taught me more than I would ever teach him. Stanley taught me that even though it's a cruel world and he was taken advantage of, he was bullied, he was teased, he still loves people. He still loves his family. And yes, he gets angry. But does he go out and do what happened the other day in Chicago? No. He walks away. Stanley's belief in himself outshines anything else in his life. Stanley believes he is successful because he tried. Does he disagree with things? Oh, yeah. But he disagrees with things on a logical level, unlike most people that I know who think that anger and fist and name-calling and bashing, that's not logical. Stan can carry on a conversation with people that will put most quote-unquote normal people to shame. Because Stanley understands that you get nowhere in life by being stupid. Oh yeah, he's been called stupid, but he's not stupid. He's one of the smartest men I know. Stanley works hard at being Stanley. Now notice I didn't say that Stanley works hard at being normal, because none of us are normal. Every single one of us are retarded in some way. And those that say, "What do you mean, Yvonne? You just insulted me." No, I have not insulted you. I am retarded in that I live in a left-handed world, a right-handed world. I'm left-handed. I am retarded in the fact that when I get tired, I stutter. I am retarded in the fact that when I get tired, the words do not come to my mouth. They're there, but I can't get them out. Does that make me stupid? Oh, no. Does it make Stanley stupid that he cannot talk like we do? That when he gets excited, that he also can't get the words out? No. Stanley's one of the smartest men I know. We as normal people, and I use that term very, very loosely, cannot abide anyone who is different. For the most part, we cannot abide someone who has a different opinion from ours because it's not our opinion. We're so busy trying to bring people over to our opinion that we forget they're entitled to their opinion. It's just as important as our opinion. Stanley understands that. Have people disallowed him because he's retarded? Oh, sure they have. Have people said, "Well, you don't count because you're different"? Oh, sure they have. Does it change the fact that he doesn't keep having his opinion? Oh, no. When my mother was sick with cancer and we thought she was dying, we all asked Stanley. All 4 of us asked Stanley, "Well, Stanley, if something happens to Mother and Daddy, who do you want to live with?" And right quick, Stanley says, "I don't know, but I'll tell you when I'm ready." In other words, don't discount my opinion. Don't discount me as a human being with feelings. When my father died, last year, again, my brother asked Stanley, "Stanley, who do you want to live with if something happens to Mother?" Again, Stanley told my brother, "When I get ready, I'll let you know." In other words, I haven't decided yet, so don't be trying to force me into something I don't want to do. Every year, Stanley comes to Florida on a plane by himself. Stanley stays in a condo by himself. Stanley gets on the plane in an Atlanta airport that is one of the busiest airports in the world. Who are we to discount another human being? Who are we to say that someone who is in the womb or someone who is disabled is not important? Stanley taught me more than I will ever teach him. Stanley has taught me how to be bullied with grace, how to be angry without lashing out, how to be hurt without being destroyed, how to understand that it will be all right, how to love unselfishly and unconditionally, how to be loyal, how to be kind, and how to be important within my own skin. Stanley is worthwhile. Stanley is important. Stanley has a purpose in this life, as do we all. So when I see things that point in the other direction, or I see things that try to discount another human being, it disturbs me. Because we have become a nation of, I don't know, stupidity. We believe that we are the only one who counts. We believe that we are the only one who is important. We are so narcissistic that we believe that our opinion and our feeling is the only one that is right. And if you disagree, then you're wrong. You are not important. And this is wrong. Every one of us on this earth has a purpose. Stanley's purpose, or one of Stanley's purposes, is to teach me more than I will ever teach him. Stanley has worked since he was 7 years old in the public sector. First with his newspaper route, and then doing jobs that we, as quote-unquote normal people, wouldn't even look at twice. We claim that we can't find a job. We claim that there are no jobs out there. Oh, people, there's jobs. But how many of you would scrub a floor? How many of you would wash a dish? I beg to say, not many. But you see, Stanley did, and still does, because there is no job too menial. There is no work too beneath him that he would not work for it. I asked him one time, I said, "Stan, you know that because you are disabled that you can draw a disability check?" He looked at me like I had totally lost my mind. He said, "Yvonne, I want to make my own money. I'm not living off the government." You see, he understands that a man is worthy of his hire, and he understands that pride comes in making one's own money and working for it, not taking it because one feels entitled. He taught me more than I will ever teach him. Stan understands that there is a pride in getting up and going in and hitting that clock every morning, every day, whether he's sick, whether he feels bad or not. He is dedicated to going to work. He is a loyal employee, regardless of whether or not they're loyal to him. Stanley taught me more than I will ever teach him. Stanley understands that the family is the nucleus of the society that we live in, and when that nucleus is broken or damaged, it can never be repaired. And if the family is why we are here, that without the family that we become nothing, because we have no way to learn how to live, love, laugh, cry. And we have no support. No matter what I've endeavored to do in my life, Stanley has always said it will be all right. Stanley is retarded. But yet now Stanley helps take care of my mother, who is now alone because my father has died. He tries to emulate my father in ways that my other brothers cannot. But Stanley is retarded. Stanley should have never done these things. But he did. Because Stanley has a self-image that outshines us all. Stanley knows who he is and what he is about. And Stanley is comfortable with who he is and what he is about. Stanley has taught me more than I will ever teach him. Stanley is my hero on more than one level. Stanley is my yardstick of how I need to behave. When I find myself giving up because people have said, Yvonne, you can't write, and they criticize my work because they read with a closed mind, I go back to Stanley and he says, it'll be all right. Stanley has taught me more than I will ever teach him. Stanley is the reason that I am successful. His was the first book I ever wrote, and it took me 30 years to write it. It took me another 7 years to get it published. You know why? Because it was never good enough. But Stanley said, Yvonne, it'll be all right. I started writing and never looked back. I started publishing and I never looked back. I've published 15 books. His was the first and his will always be the best. Dreamcatcher, failure was never an option. Stanley never fails. Stanley always lives his dreams. Does he always get to the top of that dream? No. Does it matter? No. Because Stanley is successful. Because Stanley works towards that dream. He doesn't let anything or anyone get in his way. Stanley has taught me more than I will ever teach him. Stanley doesn't say I can't. Stanley says I will. When Stanley is knocked down, metaphorically speaking, he just gets back up and says, watch this. He doesn't care what people say or feel about him because Stanley is comfortable with who he is. The whole point of this is when a man who has physical and mental disabilities can live in a world that is less than perfect, who is more cruel than not, who believes that everyone should live in a cookie-cutter environment, who disparages those who are different, who believes in taking lives of those who are in the womb who are different. A world where people think that if we do not think the same, that we are not worthwhile. Stanley teaches us more than we've ever taught him, because he makes his own way in this world. He is a hero. He has survived bullying. He has survived fraud. He has survived many, many things that most of us don't even know about. But he says it will be all right. Stanley is very loyal to his family. He is loyal to his friends, and he is loyal to his job. How many of us can say that? We're not even loyal to ourselves. Stanley has taught me more than I will ever teach him. I'm going to read you something today. It's by Juliet Hubert again. And the title of this poem is The Real Successes. Real successes are made, not dropped aside your door. They aren't a thought you made one night while wishing upon a star. Real successes are thought to be given only to the great. They think that they work hard, just as hard, and they should have that fate. Real successes are because of someone making it so. They fight for it and work real hard to make their successes grow. Real successes are envied and rumored of how they're made. People can be so jealous and even want to betray. But you know how real successes are built with hard work and care? You've made your way to the top. I'm so proud to see you are there. And this one, by Thomas John Watson Sr., says it all. Double your rate of failure. You're thinking of failure as the enemy of success, but it isn't at all. You can be discouraged by failure, or you can learn from it. So go ahead and make mistakes. Make all you can. Because remember, that's where you'll find success, on the far side. I'll leave you with this thought. And I have said it throughout this entire podcast. Stanley taught us more than we will ever teach him. Stanley is retarded. But Stanley is successful. Please go and order my book. It is on download. You can download it to all of your devices. It is in paperback and it is also in audio. It can be found on iTunes. It can be found on Amazon. It can be found on Audible. The one on iTunes, you can also download the pictures with it. The title of the book is Dreamcatcher. Failure was never an option. We need more people like Stanley. We need more successes, not people who feel they're entitled. Until next time, thank you for listening. This is Yvonne signing off.